During Sunday Mass at a small church in rural Oklahoma, a framed image of the Virgin Mary suddenly fell from the wall behind the altar with no explanation. When Father Mackenzie picked it up, what he found written on the back left him speechless and changed everything forever. The September heat in Millfield, Oklahoma, was still oppressive even at 9 a.m. as Father Patrick Mackenzie prepared for Sunday Mass at St. Anne's Catholic Church. The small farming community of barely 800 souls had been his pastoral home for 7 years, and he'd grown to love the simple rhythms of rural ministry, baptizing farmers' children, blessing harvests, and providing comfort during the inevitable struggles of agricultural life. St. Anne's was a modest brick church built in 1923, with wooden pews that could seat about 120 people and stained glass windows that cast colorful patterns across the sanctuary when the morning sun hit them just right. The congregation was small but faithful, mostly Irish and German farming families whose grandparents had settled this part of Oklahoma during the land rush. Father Mackenzie, at 45, was a thoughtful man with graying temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd been ordained 20 years earlier after a successful career as an accountant, feeling called to serve God in a more direct way after a personal crisis that shook his faith to its foundations. Rural ministry suited his contemplative nature and his desire to make a real difference in people's lives. This particular Sunday morning felt no different from hundreds of others. The usual 43 parishioners had gathered for the 9:30 Mass, Mrs. O'Malley in her customary front pew, the Johnson family with their 4 young children scattered across the third row, and old Tom Sullivan who always sat in the back despite his hearing problems. Father Mackenzie had just begun the opening prayer when it happened. Without warning, without any apparent cause, the framed image of Our Lady of Guadalupe that had hung on the wall behind the altar for over 30 years suddenly fell. The crash echoed through the small sanctuary like a gunshot. The wooden frame hit the marble floor with such force that it split in two, and the glass shattered across the altar steps in a shower of glittering fragments. The congregation gasped collectively. Mrs. O'Malley made the sign of the cross. Several children began crying at the sudden noise. Father Mackenzie stood frozen for a moment, his hands still raised in prayer, staring at the broken image lying amid the debris. In 20 years of ministry, he'd never experienced anything like this. Church fixtures didn't just fall without reason, especially not images that had hung securely in the same spot for 3 decades. "Please remain calm," he said to his startled parishioners, his voice steadier than he felt. "It appears we've had a small accident. Let me clean this up and we'll continue with Massachusetts." But as Father Mackenzie approached the altar to gather the pieces, he noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. The impact had separated the backing from the frame, revealing something that had been hidden behind the image for God knew how long. There, taped to the back of the picture in faded but still legible handwriting, was a folded piece of paper. Father Mackenzie glanced at his congregation, most of whom were straining to see what had happened. "Let me just ensure everything is safe," he said, kneeling down to examine the debris more closely. With trembling fingers, he carefully peeled away the tape and unfolded the yellowed paper. What he read made his breath catch in his throat. The handwriting was clearly old, written in fountain pen ink that had faded to brown. The paper itself was brittle with age, and the words were written in a careful, feminine script. "To whoever finds this message, I am Maria Santos, and I am writing this on October 12, 1943. I am placing this behind Our Lady's image because I believe she will ensure it reaches the right person at the right time. I have seen her in my dreams every night for a month, and she has told me to write down what I have witnessed. There is something buried beneath the floor of this church that must be found. Look for the loose stone near the baptismal font. Our Lady says it contains something precious that was hidden during great danger, and that it must be revealed when the time is right. The falling of this image is the sign that the time has come. Trust in Our Lady's guidance. Maria Santos, October 12, 1943 inch. Father Mackenzie read the message 3 times, his hands shaking more with each reading. The date, October 12, 1943, was significant. That was the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and it was right in the middle of World War II when fear and uncertainty gripped communities across America. But what struck him most was the specific nature of the instructions. Look for the loose stone near the baptismal font. Something buried beneath the floor. Hidden during great danger. Father. Mrs. O'Malley's voice broke through his stupor. Is everything all right? Father Mackenzie looked up to see his entire congregation staring at him with concern. He was still kneeling among the broken glass, holding the mysterious note, and he realized he'd been silent for several minutes. Yes, forgive me. Please give me just a moment. He carefully folded the note and slipped it into his cassock pocket, then began gathering the larger pieces of the broken frame. His mind was racing. Should he share this discovery with his parishioners? Should he investigate the claims in the letter? Should he contact the diocese? More immediately, should he cancel Mass to examine the area near the baptismal font? Tom, Bill, he called to 2 of the men in the congregation. Could you help me sweep up this glass? We'll need to clear the altar area before we can continue. As the men came forward with a broom and dustpan that they retrieved from the sacristy, Father Mackenzie found himself stealing glances at the baptismal font in the back corner of the church. St. Anne's font was original to the building, a marble basin set into a raised stone platform. He'd never noticed any loose stones, but then again, he'd never had reason to look. The cleanup took about 10 minutes, during which Father Mackenzie's thoughts kept returning to the message in his pocket. The handwriting looked authentic for the 1940s era. The paper certainly seemed old enough. But the claims it made, visions of the Virgin Mary, something precious buried under the church floor, sounded like the stuff of fiction rather than fact. Yet something about the specificity of the instructions and the circumstance of the discovery gave him pause. The image had hung securely for 30 years. Why had it fallen today, during Mass, in front of witnesses? Why now? Father, said Bill Patterson, one of the men helping with cleanup. This is the strangest thing. I helped hang this picture when I was a teenager, back in the 70s when we renovated the sanctuary. My dad and I checked those mounting brackets ourselves. There's no reason it should have fallen. What do you mean? Father Mackenzie asked. I mean the brackets are still solid in the wall, and the wire on the picture isn't broken. It's like something just lifted it off the wall and dropped it. Father Mackenzie felt a chill run down his spine. He examined the wall where the image had hung. Bill was right, the mounting hardware showed no signs of failure. The picture wire was intact. There was simply no mechanical explanation for why the image had fallen. Maybe it was a minor earthquake, suggested Mrs. O'Malley, though her voice lacked conviction. Nothing else moved, observed Tom Sullivan from the back of the church. Every other picture, every candle, every book, everything else is exactly where it was. Just that one image fell. The congregation murmured among themselves, clearly unsettled by the mysterious occurrence. Father Mackenzie realized he needed to make a decision about how to proceed. My friends, he said, stepping back to the center of the altar, I think we've all witnessed something unusual this morning. Rather than continue with Mass while we're all distracted by questions, I suggest we take some time to reflect on what this might mean. He paused, weighing his words carefully. I found something behind the image, a note that appears to be quite old. I'd like to examine it more carefully and perhaps do some research before we draw any conclusions. Would you all be willing to return this evening for a special service where we can discuss what we've learned? The congregation agreed readily. Most seemed relieved to have time to process what they'd witnessed. As they filed out of the church, Father Mackenzie heard whispered conversations about signs and wonders, about whether they'd witnessed a miracle or a warning. When the last parishioner had left, Father Mackenzie locked the church doors and returned to the sanctuary. He pulled out the note and read it again, then walked slowly to the baptismal font. The font sat on a raised platform made of fitted stone blocks, each about 2 feet square. Father Mackenzie had never paid close attention to the stonework, but now he examined it carefully. Most of the blocks appeared to be mortared solidly in place, but as he knelt down and ran his hands along the edges, he found what he was looking for. On the side of the platform facing away from the main body of the church, one of the stone blocks felt different. The mortar around its edges was slightly recessed, and when he pressed on it, the stone shifted almost imperceptibly. His heart pounding, Father Mackenzie went to the sacristy and retrieved a flashlight and a small pry bar that was kept with other maintenance tools. Returning to the font, he carefully worked the pry bar around the edges of the loose stone. It took about 20 minutes of careful work, but eventually the stone block came free, revealing a hollow space behind it. Father Mackenzie shone his flashlight into the opening and saw something that made him sit back on his heels in amazement. There, wrapped in what appeared to be oiled cloth, was a metal box about the size of a shoebox. With trembling hands, Father Mackenzie carefully extracted the box from its hiding place. It was heavier than he'd expected, made of some kind of brass or bronze that had tarnished with age but showed no signs of corrosion. The box had no lock, just a simple latch that opened easily despite the decades. Inside, Father Mackenzie found items that would forever change his understanding of his church's history and the faith of its people. The first thing he saw was a stack of documents tied with a ribbon. Beneath them were what appeared to be pieces of jewelry, several rings, a necklace, and a small gold cross. At the bottom of the box was another note, this one written in the same hand as the message behind the image. Father Mackenzie carefully untied the ribbon and examined the documents. They appeared to be personal papers, birth certificates, marriage licenses, letters, all bearing dates from the early 1940s. But what caught his attention were the names on several of them. Jewish names, foreign-sounding names, names that didn't match the Irish and German families he knew had dominated this community for generations. As he examined the documents more carefully, a picture began to emerge that stunned him. These weren't just random papers, they were identity documents for families that appeared to have been hiding in this small Oklahoma community during World War II. With growing amazement and concern, Father Mackenzie unfolded the second note from Maria Santos. What he read there would keep him awake for the next 3 nights. To the priest who finds this box, you are reading this because Our Lady knew the time was right for this secret to be revealed. During the war, our church sheltered 7 Jewish families who were fleeing persecution. They came to us with nothing but their lives and their faith in God's protection. Father O'Brien, who served this parish then, risked everything to hide them here in the church when government agents came looking. The families eventually made it safely to relatives in California, but they left these precious items as a testament to the sanctuary they found here. They also left instructions that if they died in the war, these documents should be given to the Jewish community so their families could be remembered. I hid this box because I feared what would happen if the wrong people found it during those dark times. Our Lady has told me in my visions that someday this secret would need to be revealed, that it would be important for people to know that even in the darkest times, God's people protected each other. The falling of her image will be the sign that the time for hiding is over. Please honor the courage of those who gave sanctuary and those who sought it. Maria Santos, with prayers for peace, October 12, 1943. Father Mackenzie sat in the empty church, surrounded by evidence of a heroic chapter in his parish's history that had been completely unknown to him. His hands were shaking as he carefully examined each document, each piece of jewelry, each testament to the courage and faith of people who had risked everything to protect strangers. The implications were staggering. His quiet little country church had been part of an underground network protecting Jewish refugees during World War II. The elderly parishioners he knew and loved had been part of something remarkable and dangerous, and they had never spoken a word about it. As afternoon faded into evening, Father Mackenzie sat in his study, trying to process what he had discovered. The box and its contents were spread across his desk, and he found himself holding a small gold Star of David necklace, wondering about the woman who had worn it and whether she had survived the war. Tomorrow, he would have to decide what to do with this discovery. Should he contact the diocese? Should he try to find the families mentioned in the documents? Should he share this story with his current congregation? But tonight, as he prepared for the evening service where his parishioners would return seeking answers about the fallen image, Father Mackenzie found himself praying with a depth of emotion he hadn't felt in years. Because sometimes God breaks things open, frames, secrets, assumptions about the past, to reveal truths that need to be told. And sometimes the falling of a single image can uncover a story of such courage and faith that it changes everything forever. Father Mackenzie spent the rest of the afternoon in his study, carefully documenting each item from the hidden box with photographs and detailed notes. As a former accountant, his methodical nature served him well in cataloging what appeared to be one of the most significant historical discoveries in his parish's 100-year history. By 6 p.m., when parishioners began arriving for the evening service he had promised, Father Mackenzie had made several important decisions about how to proceed. But first, he needed to share the basic facts of his discovery with the community that had unknowingly inherited this remarkable legacy. The church was more crowded than usual for an evening service. Word had spread through the small farming community about the mysterious incident during morning mass, and several families who rarely attended anything beyond Sunday services had come to hear what their priest had learned. Mrs. O'Malley sat in her usual front pew, but tonight she was joined by her adult children who had driven in from neighboring towns. The Johnson family had returned, their 4 children unusually quiet and well-behaved, sensing the gravity of the occasion. Even Tom Sullivan had claimed a seat closer to the front than usual, not wanting to miss a word. But what surprised Father Mackenzie most was the presence of several elderly parishioners he rarely saw except on major holidays. Agnes Murphy, now 89 and living in the county nursing home, had been brought by her grandson. Frank O'Brien, nephew of the parish's former priest, had driven down from Oklahoma City. Most significantly, 94-year-old Rose Kowalski sat in the third pew, her sharp eyes fixed on Father Mackenzie with an expression he couldn't quite read. "My friends," Father Mackenzie began, standing before the altar where the broken glass had been swept away just hours earlier, "this morning we witnessed something extraordinary, an event that has led to a discovery that will forever change how we understand the history of our parish and our community." He held up the yellowed note from Maria Santos. When Our Lady's image fell, it revealed a message that had been hidden behind it for over 80 years. A message that led me to uncover a secret that has been kept in this church since 1943. A murmur went through the congregation. Father Mackenzie noticed that several of the elderly parishioners had grown very still, their faces showing what might have been recognition or perhaps concern. The message was written by a woman named Maria Santos, and it spoke of something precious hidden beneath our church floor, something that was concealed during a time of great danger during World War II. He gestured toward the baptismal font. Following the instructions in her note, I found a loose stone in the platform of our baptismal font. Behind it was a metal box containing documents and personal items that tell an incredible story of courage, faith, and sanctuary. Father Mackenzie paused, choosing his words carefully. Our church, this building where we gather to worship each week, served as a sanctuary for Jewish families fleeing persecution during World War II. For a period during 1943 and 1944, Father O'Brien, who served this parish then, risked everything to provide shelter and protection for refugees who had nowhere else to turn. The reaction was immediate and varied. Some parishioners gasped in amazement. Others sat in stunned silence. But Father Mackenzie noticed that Rose Kowalski and a few other elderly members showed no surprise at all, only what appeared to be relief. "Mrs. Kowalski," Father Mackenzie said gently, "you don't seem shocked by this revelation." The 94-year-old woman slowly stood, her gnarled hands gripping the pew in front of her for support. When she spoke, her voice was strong despite her age. "Father, I've been carrying this secret for 81 years. When that picture fell this morning, I knew the time had finally come to tell the truth." A profound silence fell over the church. All eyes turned to Rose Kowalski as she continued. "I was 13 years old in 1943, and my family, my parents and my 2 younger brothers, we helped Father O'Brien hide 7 Jewish families in this church over the course of about 18 months. They weren't all here at the same time, you understand. They would come for a few weeks or a few months until Father O'Brien could arrange safe passage for them to relatives or friends in other states." Mrs. O'Malley turned in her pew to stare at Rose. "Rose, why didn't you ever tell us about this?" "Because we swore an oath," Rose replied simply. "All the families who helped, the Kowalskis, the O'Briens, the Murphys, the Castellanos, we all swore before God that we would never speak of it unless lives depended on telling. We were protecting people, you see. Even after the war ended, some of those families were still afraid. There were people who might want to hurt them, or people who might want to hurt us for helping them." Agnes Murphy raised a trembling hand from her wheelchair. "I was there too. I was Agnes O'Brien then. Father O'Brien was my uncle. I helped my aunt cook for the families when they were staying here. They were good people, scared people. They had lost everything." Frank O'Brien, Agnes's cousin, stood up. "My uncle never told me directly, but I suspected something. He would disappear for days at a time during the war, and he always seemed to be worried about something. After he died in 1967, I found some strange receipts in his papers, purchases of food and clothing that didn't make sense for a bachelor priest with a small congregation." Father Mackenzie felt a profound sense of awe as he realized he was witnessing the unveiling of a community secret that had been kept faithfully for 8 decades. "Can you tell us more about what happened? About the families who were helped?" Rose Kowalski nodded slowly. "There was the Goldstein family, David and Sarah and their twin boys, maybe 8 years old. They had been living in New York, but David's brother was in the army, and he'd written to warn them that there were groups of people looking for Jewish families, threatening them. They were terrified." She paused, her eyes growing distant with memory. "Then there were the Cohens, an elderly couple with their daughter and her baby. The baby was maybe 6 months old, and she cried sometimes during the day. We had to be so careful that no one heard." Agnes Murphy spoke up from her wheelchair. "The Rosenbergs came in the winter of 1944. They had been hiding in Chicago, but someone had reported them to the authorities as suspected communist sympathizers. In those days, if you were Jewish and someone called you a communist, you could disappear." "What happened to them?" asked Mrs. O'Malley. "Father O'Brien had connections," Rose explained. "He knew priests in other states, and he knew people who could provide new identity papers and safe transportation. Most of the families eventually made it to California, where they had relatives. A few went to Canada." Father Mackenzie held up one of the documents from the box. "This appears to be a birth certificate for Jacob Goldstein, born 1935. There's also what looks like a marriage certificate for David and Sarah Goldstein." Rose's eyes filled with tears. "They left those as a testimony, in case something happened to them on the journey west. They wanted there to be some record that they had existed, that they had been real people with real names and real lives. And the jewelry? Father Mackenzie asked, showing the small collection of rings and necklaces. Family heirlooms, Agnes said softly. Things their grandmothers had given them, things they couldn't bear to sell but were too afraid to carry. They left them here because they trusted that someday, when it was safe, they might be able to come back for them. Or if not, that we would make sure they went to other Jewish families who needed them. Father Mackenzie was quiet for a moment, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what his small church had accomplished during one of history's darkest periods. Do we know what happened to any of these families? Whether they survived? Frank O'Brien reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. Actually, Father, we do know about some of them. After my uncle died, I found this among his papers. I never knew what to do with it. He handed the envelope to Father Mackenzie, who opened it to find a letter dated December 1963. Dear Father O'Brien, Father Mackenzie read aloud, you probably don't remember us, but my family stayed in your church for 2 months in the winter of 1943. I was little Sarah Goldstein then, but now I'm Sarah Goldstein Morrison. I wanted you to know that we all made it safely to California, and that my twin brother Jacob and I are now in college. Our parents opened a small grocery store in Los Angeles, and we've built a good life here. We never forgot the kindness of the people in your parish, and we never forgot the risk you took to save us. We pray for you and for all the families in Millfield every Friday when we light our Sabbath candles. We hope that someday the world will be safe enough for people to know the truth about what heroes you all were. With gratitude always, Sarah Goldstein Morrison. The church was completely silent except for the sound of several people crying softly. Father Mackenzie set down the letter and looked out at his congregation. People whose parents and grandparents had risked everything to protect strangers, simply because it was the right thing to do. My friends, he said, his voice thick with emotion, we have inherited something more precious than any treasure. We are the heirs of a legacy of courage, compassion, and faith that transcends any differences of religion or background. Tom Sullivan raised his hand. Father, what do we do now? Should we try to find these families? I believe we should, Father Mackenzie replied. If any of them are still alive, they should know that their secret is finally safe to tell. And their children and grandchildren should know the story of their parents' survival. Mrs. O'Malley stood up. I think we should also tell the world about what this community did. People need to know that there were places where good people protected each other. And, added Rose Kowalski, we should make sure that the things they left behind get to people who will treasure them. Jewish families who will understand what these items meant to the people who owned them. Over the following weeks, Father Mackenzie reached out to Jewish organizations and Holocaust research groups. With their help, he was able to locate descendants of 3 of the 7 families who had found sanctuary at St. Anne's. The reunion that took place 6 months later was one of the most emotional events in the church's history. Sarah Goldstein Morrison, now 88 years old, returned to Millfield with her children and grandchildren. 2 grandsons of the Cohen family drove from Denver. A daughter of the Rosenbergs flew in from Toronto. They met in the same sanctuary where their parents and grandparents had hidden 8 decades earlier, and they wept together as they held the precious items that had been waiting for them all these years. But perhaps the most moving moment came when Sarah Morrison approached Rose Kowalski, now 95 and in a wheelchair, and knelt beside her. Mrs. Kowalski, she said, I remember you. You were the girl who used to sneak me candy when I was scared. You probably saved my life. Rose reached out and touched Sarah's face. Child, you all saved our lives too. You taught us what faith really means. The story of St. Anne's wartime sanctuary was eventually documented by the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. The church was recognized by the Jewish Foundation for the Righteous as a place of rescue and courage. But for Father Mackenzie, the most important outcome was the way the revelation transformed his congregation's understanding of their faith and their mission. Our Lady's image fell that morning, he would later say in interviews, because it was time for the truth to be revealed. Sometimes God has to break things open to show us what we're really capable of. Sometimes the most sacred secrets are the ones that remind us that love is stronger than fear. The image of Our Lady of Guadalupe was repaired and rehung in a place of honor, but now it was accompanied by a small plaque that read, "In memory of the families who found sanctuary here, and the community that risked everything to provide it." October 1943 to March 1944. And every year on October 12th, the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, St. Anne's holds a special service of remembrance where the story is retold and the community commits itself anew to being a place of welcome for all who seek sanctuary. Because sometimes a falling image isn't a sign of destruction, it's a sign that it's time to uncover the miracles that have been hidden in plain sight all along. Today, the metal box and its contents are displayed in a place of honor in the church vestibule, along with photographs and testimonies from the families who were saved. And visitors often comment that there's something special about St. Anne's, a sense of peace and protection that seems to emanate from the very walls. Father Mackenzie always smiles when he hears this. He knows that some places become sacred not just through prayer and worship, but through acts of courage and love. And he knows that Our Lady of Guadalupe, patron saint of the Americas and protector of immigrants, chose exactly the right moment to let her image fall and reveal the sanctuary that had been hidden in the heart of rural Oklahoma for 80 years. And there you have it. This incredible story of divine timing and hidden heroism touched your heart, didn't it? Father Mackenzie proved that sometimes God breaks things open to reveal the miracles that have been hiding in plain sight all along, right? If you were moved by this real testimony of how a Virgin Mary image mysteriously fell during Mass to reveal an 80-year-old secret about Jewish families finding sanctuary in a small Oklahoma church during World War II, hit that like button below. It really helps me continue sharing these stories that show how God works through ordinary people to do extraordinary things. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and hit that notification bell. Every week there's a new testimony that will renew your faith that divine providence works in mysterious ways to reveal truth at exactly the right moment. And don't forget to check out our store in the first pinned comment. We have amazing Christian products, including the 365-day devotional, perfect for strengthening your faith in God's perfect timing and His call to sanctuary. Tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced something breaking that led to an amazing discovery? Do you believe God reveals hidden truths when the time is right? And if you also believe in divine timing and God's call to protect others, right, God's perfect timing, declare your faith in His providence. Share this video with people who need to believe in divine providence, with those who work in ministry, with anyone who needs to know that God can use broken things to reveal beautiful truths and that our churches have legacies of courage we never imagined. Thanks for watching until the end. May the Virgin Mary bless your life and help you recognize when God is breaking things open to reveal His perfect plan. See you in the next testimony.